Garland Nixon, radio talk show host, political analyst, regular friend of the mother of all talk shows, joins me from the United States, and I'm grateful to him for doing so. Garland, let's start with that question in our poll. Will President Trump release the Jeffrey Epstein files, in your opinion?
In my opinion, no. There are two particular pieces of information that people are concerned with. Donald Trump said that he would reveal the information, the final part of the puzzle for the JFK assassination and the connections to the CIA, the documentation that was legally required to have been released, but no president has released it. He said he would release that, and the Epstein files. But here's the reality. People already know the answers. This would be confirmation of what people already know. And I think that the level of power that would be compromised were these two documents to be released are so significant and so high that they'll never allow Donald Trump to do that. So I think he may even intend to do it. I don't know. But I don't think Donald Trump will ever be allowed to do that. Remember, he wanted to, my understanding was that he wanted to at least pardon Snowden and possibly Assange, and he was told by his own party that they would join the Democrats and impeach him if he did that. So I think that he won't be allowed to do that, and I don't think that's at the top of the list for the people who put Donald Trump in office. They'd like to see that happen, but I think they've got bigger fish to fry.
Now, we'll come to Trump in a minute, but let's spend some time on Joe Biden. The Wall Street Journal has seen fit to tell us in the last few weeks of the Biden administration that he's been gaga since the very minute he walked through the door in 2020. And every day is a shocking revelation about the level of degeneration, physical and mental, of Joe Biden. And yet all these people lied and lied and lied to us about that. What's your take on it?
Well, I believe it was September 12th, 13th of 2020. There was an article that either ABC or NBC, people can look it up. There was an article where Julian Castro, at that time, he's from Texas. He was running against Joe Biden in the 2020 election, and he questioned Joe Biden's mental capacity at that time, and he was roundly attacked by the mainstream media. So the reality is, before he was even elected in 2020, there was a discussion about his mental ability. I have suspected all along, and I've voiced it even here on this show, that there was an intent to get rid of him, and that they ran a crooked primary so that there would be nobody in second place. And let's not forget, in the primary, they wouldn't even allow other people's name on the ballot. It was like a banana republic. You're going to vote for Joe Biden in the primary, and the only name on the ballot was Joe Biden. They knew he was bad. They stuck him out there in January so they could get rid of him. And just the plan went awry. But all who had paid attention to Joe Biden over his course of politics knew that at one time, even though I disagree with his politics, he was a pretty sharp guy. But by the time 2020 hit, there was not much of the original Joe Biden left. And now we are just talking about the obvious that everyone has known for at least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, but you, me, and the rest of us who questioned him were lambasted, lashed by the so-called mainstream media for cruelty, for being Russian stooges. This was all Russian disinformation. Joe was sharp as a tack behind closed doors. Does no one take responsibility for that? Is there no accountability for that?
Well, absolutely not, because the fact of the matter is they continued with that hoax. Joe Biden was bad enough. And then they put Kamala Harris in her place, and they tried to tell us that she was brilliant and she was qualified and she was, the best they could possibly get. And she was horrific. She was not very bright, and she was wholly unable to answer a question. The only question that I ever heard her answer during the 3 months that she ran was when they asked her if she would do anything different than Joe Biden, and she said, "I can't think of anything." Other than that, she never answered a single question. So the Democratic Party is putting forth these absurd clowns for candidates and then attacking us when we point out the obvious about their competency or the lack thereof.
They must be in deep you-know-what now, the Democrats, because Trump seems to me a pretty vengeful guy. And he's got quite a lot to get revenge for. Don't you think he and, Steve Bannon, who went to prison, and the real true believers in Donald Trump, don't you think they're going to come gunning for the Democrats? And they're not short of ammunition.
Right. Not just the Democrats, the entire machine that the Democrats use. Donald Trump has already started winning recently within the last few weeks. He got a $15 million settlement with ABC News because George Stephanopoulos falsely called him a rapist. He won. He's filed a lawsuit against an Iowa pollster, an Iowa polling company, who put out this strange poll that said Donald Trump was losing to Kamala Harris by 3 points in Iowa, a state that he won by 13 points. They missed it by 16 points a week and a half before the election. He also, I believe he has by the way, Fani Willis in Georgia, the prosecutor in Georgia, an appeals court has just thrown her off the prosecution team, which means this case will likely get moved out of Atlanta into a more rural area where it would surely be quickly done away with. So Donald Trump has already started, if he's going after the Democrats and the machine, the political machine that tried to stop him, he's already started with his winning ways, and he's 3-0 so far at least. And I expect that actually Donald Trump is going to go after that infrastructure, that media infrastructure, which is going to include government leakers. Joe Biden's talked about pardoning Liz Cheney, pardoning Adam Schiff, and this is about leaking. This is about Liz Cheney being accused, at this point, credibly accused by a government report of witness tampering. So I just think the machine is in deep and serious trouble, and Donald Trump has a target-rich environment if he wants to go after the people who violated laws and violated policies to try to stop him.
A target-rich environment. I totally love that. Low-hanging fruit at home and indeed abroad, because there's a pattern now developing of Joe Biden's closest allies in the world. I mean, let's start in South Korea, where the guy they wanted to, give medals to, went completely berserk, ordered the army to invade the parliament, declare martial law, then only to march the soldiers down again, and then got impeached. Biden's Asia policy doesn't look too healthy, but the European policy looks even worse. Schultz and Baerbock, Macron are all teetering on the brink, and they're paying the price for their blind obedience to a man, Joe Biden, that was, to all intents and purposes, blind when he was giving them the orders.
Oh, well, you left out just a few miles north of here. You left out Canada, where Prime Minister Trudeau has, he's certainly on the way out. I suspect that the neoliberal bunch, all the kind of, I call them the Obama lookalikes. They want these good-looking guys, with the exception of Schultz, surely, but these good-looking, young, smart guys that look great in a suit that are absolutely, simply just compradors for the U.S. empire. They're going to go down. But I'll tell you what, here's a prediction I have. All these people and all of these Trump haters, these people, there's no honor amongst thieves. The day Donald Trump becomes the president, they will do a 180, or as Annalena Baerbock would say, a 360, but they will absolutely reverse course, and they will go turn from anti-Trump people. It will be Donald Trump, we always loved you, we always support you. They have spine, they have no substance, and they will do a complete reversal of course, and they will be standing in line to kiss Donald Trump's ring. I will bet you that.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at a video from before the 2016 victory from Lindsey Graham, in which he was fulminating that Donald Trump was not a fit and proper person to be the president of the United States. There was no name that Lindsey Graham didn't call him. Little Marco Rubio, ditto. Prior to the 2020, and there's people in that rhino rump inside the Congress, Republican in name only, who voted to impeach Trump. Is he going to deal with these people, or like Rubio, are some of them going to be rewarded?
It may be a joke, maybe not. But, for a while, I've suspected that the only reason he brought Marco Rubio in is to get the joy of firing him within the first 3 months. Let's not forget, Donald Trump puts forth a first draft of his cabinet. Usually, I mean, if you look at that, how many Secretary of States and secretaries of whatever, he usually goes through 2 or 3 of these positions. So I suspect he brought Marco Rubio in so he could build him up, and within 2 or 3 months, he'll fire him in the most humiliating way and put the guy that he really wants in there. So Marco Rubio he's set up to be smacked down by Donald Trump. I don't think it's going to work out well for him. I think he'll humiliate him a while, and then after he's thoroughly humiliated him, he'll just finish him off by firing him.
Now, Vladimir Putin said last week that he had not spoken to Donald Trump for 4 years. And I believe him. I don't think Putin would tell a lie in front of the world on that point, a lie which could easily be disproven. But Donald Trump said today that he's going to be meeting with Putin, and that both of them were looking forward to it very much. Are they going to meet? Where do you think they'll meet? Given that Putin cannot travel to many places. Where will they meet, and what will they discuss? What will they decide? Is the war in Ukraine really going to come to an abrupt end, in your view?
Well, I do believe that he's going to meet President Putin. I do believe that Donald Trump sees this Ukraine thing as a way that he can demonstrate his power and authority. I think Donald Trump is really looking forward to trying to, whether he can or not, I'm not sure, but I think he's really looking forward to it, because I think Donald Trump's position is Putin's a tough guy. He doesn't see President Putin or President Xi or et cetera as adversaries to hate. He sees them as tough people that he can kind of get in the ring and tussle it up with and hopefully get an advantage. So he doesn't. I don't think he hates Putin in the way that the blob does. But I think he will meet him. I think it will probably have to be in Russia or in maybe one of the stands, so that President Putin feels comfortable that he's not going to be backstabbed by some of the people around, the whole ICC case, et cetera. But I think he meets with him. Whether he can get a deal, I'm going to stick my neck out and say yes right now. I'm going to stick my neck out and say yes. I think he does get a deal. I would commend people to read a Politico op-ed that was written by RFK Jr. and Donald Trump Jr. A few months ago. And if you read that, you understand that the people around Donald Trump actually do understand the Ukraine conflict and understand the foundations on which this conflict was brought forward. And I think if you really understand this conflict, you have an opportunity to get a deal. I think Donald Trump understands a lot more about the conflict than he's letting on with his public rhetoric. So I'm gonna guess and say yes.
I'm pretty impressed by Donald Trump Jr. I may have put that point to you before. I watched him on the election night at some length with Tucker Carlson, and I've since read the op-ed you refer to and other things that he's said and written. If I were Donald Trump Sr., I'd be looking at why make all these T-shirts and hats and posters again? Get the boy to run next time. But only time to ask you about China, Garland. Again, counterintuitively, Donald Trump was waxing lyrical this week about his relationship with Xi Jinping, how they'd walked for miles. He doesn't look like the man that walks miles to me. Actually, neither of them do. But they apparently walked for miles. They got on famously, although whether Xi Jinping understood anything Donald was saying must be debatable. But he didn't sound like the guy that's about to go to war with China either.
Right. I don't think Donald Trump's inclination is war. I think, historically, you can look at many instances where there were generals on opposite sides of the wars, and they met. And they respected each other, and they walked away, and they wrote about the great respect that they had for the other general, even though they fought. They respected the person and their abilities. I think Donald Trump is more that type, wherein the Biden people are more, we hate the Russians or we hate the Chinese, or it's just a kind of this pure and some types ethnic hatred or some kind of a hegemonic hatred. I think Donald Trump, even the countries that he sees as adversaries, sees the leaders of the countries as a worthy, strong, and proud adversary to go up against that he can, confront, and then he can win. I think Donald Trump sees the conflict with China, and I hate to use that word because don't think there should be a conflict, but I think he sees that as an economic conflict, as a diplomatic conflict, et cetera. I don't think he sees that as a potential military conflict because, again, he talks about nuclear war, and Donald Trump understands, I think, the dangers of World War III and the dangers of nuclear conflict, and he's spoken of those things. So I think Donald Trump wants deals. Remember, Donald Trump, a while back, when they asked him about dealing with China's electric vehicles, he said, well, if they want to sell them here, they should build factories here, and they should employ Americans to build them, and maybe they can sell them here. Well, there are a lot of people on the left, such as me, who says, that sounds kind of like my politics, maybe not in the same way, but that's the direction I would go.
Yeah, you and me both. Now, there's a man in brothel creepers, as we call them here, soft shoeing his way across the Atlantic, Garland, coming to see you. One Peter Mandelson. I advise you to give him a wide berth, and if you have to sup with him, do it with a very long spoon, and if you have to shake hands with him, count your fingers when he lets go. What's the response in the US to Mandelson's appointment, or are they more like Britain? What's that? Peter Mandelson? Who's he?
Exactly. I think right now Americans look at Britain kind of like they do the Hollywood. Right now, Hollywood, people look at the movies they put out and they're like, well, you people are all, you kind of feel good about yourself and you're making a lot of noise about how great and moral you are, but you're putting out terrible movies and nobody goes to see them. You're a disaster. Amongst yourselves, you believe that you're great, but everybody else is laughing at you. And I think that's the way Americans look at the British ruling elite and the British leaders. You guys think you're so smart. Your own citizens hate you, and we're just laughing at you, and we can laugh at you because we're not feeling the pain of your incompetence, but your people are. So I think Americans at this point aren't even looking at the leadership in Britain as a competent group that should be discussed. It's like, gee, we feel sorry for the British working class, and we hope that at some point they'll be able to get rid of these clowns.